Turn in your Bibles, Daniel 9, chapter 9, verse 24. Daniel 9:24, we're looking at part 3 here of the preparation, God's preparation for his second coming, his preparation for the apocalypse when he will intervene and bring on the earth his wrath, the day of the Lord's judgment. Daniel 9:24 shows that there are some preliminary events that have to take place before God begins the 70 weeks, which in essence begin the end times. But God is going to prepare the land, prepare his people, prepare the earth for his second coming. 9:24, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Then in verse 25 and 26, it shows where the start of the 70th week began and the past events, which include the cross of Jesus Christ and the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, the leveling of the destruction and leveling of Jerusalem, and the temple destroyed there in AD 70. So verse 25 and verse 26 show the past events. Verse 27 shows future events that will occur as the beginning of the 70 weeks occurs there at the confirmation of the covenant by the Antichrist with the many that are in the land in that day. However, at the present time, God is preparing his people. He's preparing the Jews because there is a cycle that's already begun, which is the same pattern as happened at the first coming of God when Jesus was incarnation, his incarnation and virgin birth. When he came the first time, there was a pattern of 10 events. Now, hold on here. Get your pencil out. Write them down. What is the first event? The first event is the destruction of Jerusalem. That occurred in 586 BC. That's now we're laying down a timeline here showing the first coming of Jesus and how it's being repeated for the second coming. So the first thing that happened is the temple was destroyed, number one. The dispersion of the Jews, that happened at the same time when Nebuchadnezzar came into Babylon, destroyed the entire city, and the Jews were taken captive into Babylon. And then number three, the Jews returned to the promised land. That happened in 536 BC. And then the holy city Jerusalem was controlled, 536 or 516 actually. And then the temple of God was rebuilt. That's number 5. So first destruction, then dispersion of the Jews. The Jews returned, number 3. Number 4, the holy city Jerusalem controlled by the Jews. Number 5, the temple of God is rebuilt. Number 6, the restoration of the sacrifices and the priesthood, temple worship. That's 536, 516, Ezra 3, 1 through 7. Most of this can be documented in the book of Ezra. And then number 7, 400 years after the Old Testament, writing of the Old Testament was complete, God sent his first Elijah-like prophet. Who was that? It was John the Baptist. John the Baptist was the forerunner of Jesus Christ. He was the voice crying in the wilderness, "Prepare ye the way of the Lord." So the first Elijah-like prophet was sent, and that's number 7. Number 8, the first coming of Jesus. And then he had, number 9, a 3.5-year public ministry. Number 10, the judgment of the Jews for rejection of Jesus. That started the second cycle. That started the cycle for God to return and come back to earth in his second coming, because that AD 70 destruction and dispersion of Jerusalem is the first to in that same pattern. And then number 3, the Jews return to the land. That is continuing to occur today, but they became a nation in 1948. So then the Holy City is controlled, 1967. Number 5, the temple of God will be rebuilt. We don't know when that is, but that will happen in the same manner as it happened the first destruction and return prior to the first coming of God to the planet. And then he will send the second Elijah-like prophet, which is prophesied in Malachi 4, 5, and 6, the last verses of the Old Testament, as Jesus, in reference to those verses, in Matthew 17:11, said, Elijah truly shall come first and restore all things. The second Elijah-like prophet will be sent, and that event is on the doorstep. That is the next major event for God to send a mighty Hebrew prophet to the land to restore all things. It's going to happen. The Jews themselves, the Orthodox Jews, are waiting and set a plate for him at the cedar. Every time Passover is observed, the Jews have a plate at the table, and it's for Elijah the prophet. They're waiting for him, and so should the church. We should be praying that God would send this prophet, this mighty prophet that will bring the restoration of all old covenant things to the Jews in the land in preparation for the second coming of Jesus. Part 4 will continue tomorrow.